Okay, for week 12 Thursday, I'm going to talk about pages 14 through 36, just kind of discuss, make sure you got all the important bits. And then today you will be taking the 36 through 57 quiz, which if you need any sort of preview or information about that before you take it, then you would want to look in Friday's video too. Yeah, so each video kind of going back to the previous day. So I'll primarily be discussing 14 through 36. May give you like the miniest previews into the next section, but mostly discussing the section that theoretically you have already read, maybe. Okay, so on page 14, last time I kind of mentioned that first sentence, like Mr. Clutter, drawing those connections between victims and killers, kind of a strange thing. So let's forget for a moment that this individual, Perry is his name, is going to commit a terrible crime. And let's just focus on characterization. So one of the first things of note about Perry is he has this map of Mexico, and the map is so thumbed that it had grown as supple as a piece of chamois, and chamois is leather. So we immediately get the sense that he has dreams, he has goals and ambitions, so that tells us a little bit about him. He also does not have a whole lot of stuff. One cardboard suitcase, a guitar, two big boxes of books and maps and songs, poems, no letters, weighing a quarter of a ton. So that is, he's kind of a nomadic lifestyle. So that is, definitely kind of what he could carry. Interesting, the things that he chooses to keep with him, the things that he values. And we also get the name of his accomplice, Dick, who has mentioned a score. Don't exactly know what that means yet, but we assume that there is some sort of profit to be made from their plans. So anyways, continuing on with Perry, around page 15, we get some physical description of him. Physically, he is a powerful looking man, shoulders, arms, torso of a weightlifter, but he has tiny feet. And he's not very tall. He's actually rather short, size of a 12-year-old child. And his legs look stunted, grotesquely inadequate, like a jockey, if you've ever seen sort of a jockey's physique on a horse. So it doesn't seem incredibly intimidating while standing, but okay. So then on the next page, page 16, we learn a little bit about Perry's heritage. His mother was full-blooded Cherokee, so he does have Native American ancestry. And then his father was Celtic. He was Irish. So Perry mostly resembles his mother, but does have a little bit of Irish in him, supposedly. Let's see, what else? Then we get sort of this, what's the word I'm looking for? Like, kind of goes off in his head a little bit, kind of spaces out. We have this little song about parrots. We have his kind of like mental meanderings about how he wants to, make a fortune from diving and find treasure, and he's imagining and dreams and drifting down into the ocean, and a car horn honked at last, Dick. So it seems like kind of a dreamy person, not super literal and pragmatic, a little bit dreamy, and then Dick arrives and kind of cuts off that dreaming, these sort of, what's the word I'm looking for? Kind of short, periodic sentences sort of snap us back to reality. And the reality is that he is waiting for his friend Dick so that he can, make this score happen, whatever it is. So that's our first look at Perry and some brief little glimpses of his partner, Dick Hickok, who he describes as authentically tough, invulnerable, totally masculine. So we'll see what Dick is like when we get to meet him in person. So then this next section, we're back to the Clutter family, and we'll keep up this back and forth between killers and victims throughout most of the first part of the book. But here we have Nancy. So Nancy is sort of the focus of this section, just as Mr. Clutter was kind of the focus of the first section about the family. And page 17 into page 18 tells us a little bit about Nancy. So at the top of page 18, talks about all of her activities, her musical instruments, her involvement with the 4-H program, her academic prowess, her cooking and sewing, and she just does all of the things. She is just like this perfect, wonderful child who seems, totally flawless. But we get some typical teenage stuff. So on page 19, she mentions, let's see, where is it? Oh, yeah, this cigarette smoke thing. Every once in a while, maybe they sneak a puff of cigarettes. So the golden children, the perfect little Clutter children, maybe they have their small vices as well. All right. So then going on to page 20, turning my pages, we get a little scene with Nancy and Susan. So Susan Kidwell is Nancy's best friend. And they're gossiping and talking about boys and all of the things. And then we get another reminder of the conflict between Nancy and her father at the bottom of 20 and top of page 21. Her father, of course, is opposed to Bobby Rupp because his family is Roman Catholic. Ooh, scary. So Nancy is torn. She loves Bobby. She cares about him a great deal, but she also has that, I want to be a good daughter urge. I'm tongue-tied. I just want to be his daughter and do as he wishes. So she's trying really hard to make her father happy, but she understands that her relationship with Bobby is a little bit of a conflict, just the slightest little mark upon their relationship. So anyways, the only other kind of interesting thing in this section, let's see. Okay. Nancy once again mentions smelling cigarette smoke. So the implication in this section is, maybe Mr. Clutter is the one smoking. And that is mentioned later on as a potentially important, so we're looking for like a detail, a bit of information that the investigators latch on to. Did Mr. Clutter have some secret stress that was causing him to turn to tobacco? But who knows? So anyways, that's just a little detail from the last day of Nancy's life. Okay, so that's the Nancy section, perfect little Nancy. And then starting on page 22, we get back to our killers. And we get to see the interaction between Dick, who's described as this totally masculine character, and Perry, who seems a little bit more of a dreamer than Dick is. So they have some discussion about their plans. Seems like they have a ruse planned in this crime that they seem to be very much intending to commit. So they have a shotgun. They have this excuse. We do get, I like this little moment here when Dick, who obviously doesn't seem to care as much about, speaking properly, says, "I promise you, honey, we'll blast hair all over them walls." And Perry corrects him, "Those walls. It's not them walls, Dick. Gosh." So Perry, though he is not technically any more educated than Dick, he does seem to be more interested in learning things. Dictionary buff, devotee of obscure words. So it seems like while he was in prison, he taught himself a number of things that maybe he didn't get from a traditional education system. So anyways, we see an example of that at the bottom of page 23. Nope, I must have skipped over it. Where is the bit about his mother? Oh, yeah. So Perry said, your mother hates me. I could see the ineffable way they looked at me. So, I mean, ineffable, like, I had to check out what that meant the first time I read this book. That's not a common vocabulary word, but it is defined as inexpressible or unuttered. So because Perry has a criminal background, and, Dick does too, Dick's parents do not enjoy them spending time together. As a person on parole, you really aren't supposed to associate with other people who have been in prison. That is actually a violation of parole. So I'm sure they're concerned about him getting in trouble, as well as Perry potentially being a bad influence. So anyways, that is our first characterization of Dick and Perry. We do learn a little bit about Dick in terms of his background. Twice married, twice divorced, now 28, the father of 3 boys. So he is required to reside with his parents as part of his parole from prison. But yeah, so we have 2 guys, prison background, met in prison, and they're fairly young. Perry, I think, is a few years older than Dick, but fairly young, late 20s, early 30s. And they appear to be planning something absolutely horrific. So we still don't know how they connect to Mr. Clutter or the Clutter family, but somehow they're going to end up there. Okay. Back to the family. So here we get another little section with the Clutters, mostly focused on Mrs. Clutter, Bonnie Clutter, and giving her some characterization. We know that she's had some issues with mental illness, and we can definitely see some little signs of that in this section. These kind of pathetic comments that she makes, all my children are very efficient. They don't need me. So it does seem like she's very kind of distanced from the activities of everyday life. She's such a contrast to Nancy, who seems so confident and so capable and so occupied with everything and so productive. Mrs. Clutter seems almost ghost-like. She's described as defenseless. She's described as, helpless. There it is, defenseless, helpless. These aren't exactly positive adjectives. And she is tiny, only 98 pounds, a minuscule human. So she's pretty sad, pretty pathetic overall. And we get a clue as to where her mental issues may have started. So if you flip over to page 27, it talks about Mrs. Clutter's history a little bit. And there we go. With Nancy and then with Kenyon, the pattern of postnatal depression repeated itself, and following the birth of her son, the mood of misery that descended never altogether lifted. It lingered like a cloud that might rain or might not. So we call this nowadays postpartum depression instead of postnatal depression, but it's the same thing. When a woman has a child, the hormones that go through her body can be incredibly intense, obviously during pregnancy, but then after pregnancy, they can often cause issues. My mother had very bad postpartum depression. So when Mrs. Clutter gave birth to Kenyon, it seems that this depression just really never left her. This hormonal imbalance never quite went away. So that's, of course, a sad thing about her. And there's more, kind of pathetic details about her. She's such a contrast, again, to her husband, a joiner, a born leader. And then we learn a little bit more about her history. She found a job as a file clerk at the YWCA. And then it says she had liked it too well, so much that it seemed to her unchristian. And the sense of guilt she in consequence developed ultimately outweighed the experiment's therapeutic value. And just have to imagine how sad this is, that she enjoyed her job so much, it was bringing her such happiness, that she decided that it was a bad thing, and she felt guilty about enjoying it and had to stop. So what a commentary on, the state of mental health, that sometimes, even when you find something that could help you, you can't enjoy it and you can't appreciate it, because you feel guilty about being happy. I don't know. It's a very sad thing. And then we also get at the top of page 29, this just so pathetic. These short little periodic sentences, as if she can't even finish a thought. I can't. I don't know. Please. Hiding behind the bedroom door with the bedroom door locked. Just an absolutely helpless character. Anyways, so Bonnie, of course, is hopeful at this point. They have that like back surgery pinched nerve thing that they think might be the issue with her. But unfortunately, at the top of page 30, we are reminded that this is the final day of her life. So she will never be able to find out if that surgery would have actually done anything, because she is going to die today. Bye, Mrs. Clutter. And ending with this very ominous quote, this biblical allusion: "Take ye heed, watch and pray, for ye know not when the time is." And of course, Mrs. Clutter did not know when the time was, but we do. So, all right. So the next little section, another short one, kind of short and back and forth. Dick and Perry, we again get some characterization of them, both very attentive to hygiene. So, even if they're criminals, at least they're clean criminals, I suppose. We learn a little bit more about their physical aspects. Dick is blonde, medium height, very in shape. We have lots of tattoos on both men. Dick's seem to be a little bit more, a little bit rougher, so to say. Got dragons, some naughty pictures of women, little gremlin piece, bouquet of flowers dedicated to mother and dad, and Carol, one of his previous wives. But anyways, then we get some information about a very distinctive physical feature of Dick's. And this is at the middle of page 31, the car accident that Dick went through. And that comes up several times. In 1950, Dick was in a car collision, and because of the way that he was injured, his face is slightly tilted. And of course, keep in mind, Dick is a real person, so you can definitely Google him and see what they're talking about. It's very, very subtle. It's very slight. It's not super obvious, but his face is just slightly lopsided, and that is, a pretty distinctive physical feature. But Perry says nice things. "Oh, you got a great smile, though, so that's fine." Dick actually has a fairly high IQ. You definitely wouldn't know it to hear him talk, but he has an IQ of 130. So that's enough to be in an honors class. Dick could have been a very smart little kid. Perry also has some injuries. His were not a car wreck, but a motorcycle wreck. So they start talking about that at the bottom of 31. He was much more seriously injured, a whole year of hospital time and rehabilitation. And that's part of what makes his legs look so funny, those chunky dwarfish legs. They've been broken, and they're scarred all over. And because of the pain, he's become an aspirin addict. I suppose that's better than opioids, but too much aspirin probably isn't great for you either. He does have some tattoos as well, but because of his time spent overseas, he got his tattoos from actual professional tattoo artists, and so he's got a tiger and a snake and tombstone and some flowers and cookie. So lots of lots of physical description in this section. So anyways, we end seeing them scrubbed and combed, as tidy as two dudes setting off on a double date, except they're not going on a double date. They're going to kill people. So kind of a ironic simile there. Okay, and then, and I think this is the last, so the last little bit in this section of reading, we go back to Kansas, to Garden City, Olathe, and get a little bit of characterization of the town. So lots of description of our setting. On page 34, we definitely get a reminder that we're in the Bible Belt. So even though Kansas is way out west, the Bible Belt that starts in the southeast extends out there. And they have an incredible number of churches in the area, lots and lots of different denominations. We also get a little bit more related to Mr. Clutter because he is so prominent in this community. So near the top of page 35, we see Mr. Clutter at this 4-H club meeting. And at this meeting, he is recognizing the Ashita family. So the Ashita family originally came over from Japan, but they've been in this community for quite some time, and he wants to recognize them. Very productive members of the community, wants to give them an award. So that's a sweet thing. Definitely seems like a nice guy. And Mrs. Ashita is all aflutter, oh, thank you so much, Herb. Gosh, that was a jolt. But we do get this news about the Ashita family near the bottom of 35. They might be leaving soon. Maybe they'll go to Nebraska. Just talk right now. So anyways, then at the top of page 36, well, I guess kind of the middle of page 36, Mrs. Ashita, who obviously admires Mr. Clutter so much, definitely just doesn't realize, of course, the irony of what she's saying, but, we who know what is going to happen, there's mad, dramatic irony in the situation because of our awareness, talks about how nothing scares you, I can't imagine you afraid. No matter what happened, you talk your way out of it. So, of course, this night, in a few hours, Mr. Clutter is going to be in a situation that presumably will be incredibly terrifying and that he definitely will not be able to talk his way out of. So it's just interesting the perception that the community has of him as this invulnerable figure, so capable and so competent and so, just kind of larger than life in terms of his, influence, but that's not going to save him in this case. So that's our discussion of pages 14 through 36. Hope that helped either before or after the quiz, whichever you chose to pursue. And I'll talk about the next section in the next video.